Anne Shirley and Gilbert Blythe's love story is one of the most beloved in young adult literature, so it's no surprise that the recent adaptation stirred up all kinds of emotions among its audience. Unfortunately, the show's abrupt cancellation kept us from experiencing their full story. But we're not letting that stop us, are we? That's why, in this video, I'll tell you everything we know about Anne and Gilbert's relationship, thanks to the books. I'll be covering just the main events, so if you want the full story, check out the book or the audiobook. So, without further ado, let's begin. It all started in the quaint little town of Avonlea, where a young girl with fiery red hair and prominent freckles named Anne Shirley joined the local school. Her unique appearance and lively personality caught many people's attention, but especially that of a young boy named Gilbert Blythe. From the moment he saw her, Gilbert was curious about this different girl, so full of life and clever words. But trying to get her attention, he made a big mistake, one that sparked years of misunderstandings and grudges. Trying to be funny, Gilbert made a harmless joke, or so he thought. He called her carrots because of her bright red hair, not realizing that his comment would cut deeply. Anne had always been sensitive about her looks, especially her hair. In a flash of anger, without thinking twice, she broke a slate over Gilbert's head in front of their stunned classmates. From that moment on, Anne decided she would never forgive Gilbert, no matter how much he tried. And so, she kept her distance for years, ignoring him despite his constant attempts to apologize. No matter how much admiration Gilbert showed for her, Anne clung to her resentment. Even when he saved her from a near-fatal accident while they were reenacting the famous Lancelot and Elaine scene by Alfred Tennyson, Anne refused to accept his outstretched hand. When Gilbert offered his friendship after the pond incident, she rejected him again. It was then that Gilbert, hurt but resigned, decided to stop trying. He focused on his studies, sparking a fierce academic rivalry between the two. While for Anne, this rivalry felt like a never-ending battle, for Gilbert, it was quite the opposite. He saw it as motivation, a challenge that pushed him to be better. As the months passed, Anne began to recognize Gilbert as an equal. Both excelled in school, striving to be the best, until the time came to compete for a scholarship at the prestigious Queen's Academy. After finishing his studies at Queen's, Gilbert made a tough decision. He chose to stay in Avonlea as a teacher to save up for his future education in medicine. Anne, on the other hand, also had academic dreams, but fate struck unexpectedly. Her beloved mentor, Matthew, died of a heart attack, leaving her devastated. Marilla, the woman who had raised Anne at Green Gables, couldn't manage the farm alone, and Anne, without hesitation, decided to give up her cherished scholarship to stay and help at home. That generous gesture did what his words never could. Anne finally forgave him. From that moment, they began to build a true friendship. Over the next 2 years, while both taught at nearby schools, Anne and Gilbert's friendship grew stronger. The long conversations, shared laughs, and mutual respect brought them closer. Yet Anne didn't recognize the feelings she was developing for Gilbert. Sometimes she'd feel a pang of jealousy seeing him with other girls, or catch herself drawn to him. But she held on to her idea of true love as a wild, mysterious romance, just like the heroes in her favorite novels. When it was time to continue their studies, Gilbert decided to go to Redmond College to study medicine, a long-held dream. Anne joined him at Redmond as well, now free of her responsibilities at Green Gables, with the arrival of widow Rachel Lynde to keep Marilla company. At university, Gilbert's feelings for Anne became increasingly clear. He could no longer hide how much he loved her, but she, still caught in her idealized view of love, didn't see it the same way. Finally, during their second year at Redmond, Gilbert decided to take a leap and confess his feelings. With his heart on the line, he proposed to her. But to his great disappointment, Anne turned him down. She told him she only saw him as a friend and could never love him the way he wanted. Gilbert, heartbroken, accepted her answer with dignity, but made it clear that friendship wouldn't be enough. "I want your love," he said honestly, "and you're telling me I can never have it." After that conversation, things became awkward between them. Anne tried to move on, convinced she'd made the right choice, and soon began seeing another young man from college, Roy Gardner. Roy seemed to fit her romantic ideal, handsome, serious, and perfect in every way. But as time passed, Anne realized something was missing. They didn't share the same sense of humor or emotional depth that she'd always found with Gilbert. Still, she continued the relationship, hoping that in time she might learn to love him. Meanwhile, Gilbert seemed to have accepted his fate. He threw himself into his studies, pursuing the prestigious Cooper Prize, a scholarship that would allow him to attend medical school. Anne, too, began to question her feelings, but it was fate that ultimately opened her eyes. Gilbert contracted typhoid fever, a sickness that left him gravely weakened and on the brink of death. Faced with the possibility of losing him forever, Anne finally realized the truth. She loved him. She had always loved him. Shortly before Gilbert fell ill, Roy Gardner proposed, but Anne turned him down without hesitation. She knew her heart belonged to someone else. When she heard the news of Gilbert's recovery, everything became clear. Her relationship with him was more than friendship. It was real love. She had deceived herself for years, believing love should be like the books, when in reality, the love she shared with Gilbert was deeper and more authentic than any fantasy. Soon after his recovery, Gilbert proposed once again, and this time, Anne said yes. However, their engagement would last several years, as Gilbert wanted to complete his medical studies before they married. During that time, Anne worked as a high school principal in Summerside, and they kept their love alive through regular letters, which became the thread that kept them close during their years apart. Finally, the day came when Anne and Gilbert married at Anne's House of Dreams, a cozy little place in the village of Glen St. Mary. It was the beginning of a life filled with love, laughter, and challenges. Gilbert became a respected doctor, while Anne, ever the dreamer, found happiness in her home and family. They had 7 children, though their firstborn, Joyce, passed away as a baby. Their children grew up surrounded by the love they had built, and though life brought them hardships, such as the loss of their son Walter in World War I, Anne and Gilbert's love remained unshakable. They lived together into old age, surrounded by their children and grandchildren, watching as their story continued with new generations. Let me know in the comments what other topics you'd like to see covered on the channel, and remember, if you enjoy this type of video, the best way to support me is by leaving a like, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell. See you in the next video.